what does this mean for chocolate and children? Because children seem to be the ones who consume quite a bit of chocolate, especially in this country. Well, if you had a 5-year-old and you gave them a small single serving of chocolate pieces, you would find approximately 1.4 micrograms of lead, which is higher than the total daily consumption of lead that they are allowed from all sources. If you gave a 6-year-old a dark chocolate bar, it's estimated that his blood level of lead would increase up to 21%. And the EPA has stated that for every microgram of lead a child ingested, if their blood level raises by 0.16 microgram per deciliter, that 1 microgram per deciliter increase in blood concentration equals a loss of 1/4 of an IQ point or more. So why are there toxic metals in chocolate? Toxic metals are in the soil. The metals come from different fertilizers and different runoff from industry and are absorbed by the cocoa plants, and then they go and concentrate in the beans. Mercury, cadmium, and lead depend on a lot of conditions, the soil being one of them. It's been found that cadmium in the Central American cocoa is higher than the cadmium levels in African cocoa. And if you look at different types of fertilizers and pesticides, in Africa, like the Ivory Coast and Ghana, they use fertilizers which are contaminated with heavy metals, which then concentrate in the plants themselves. And finally, there are alkalizing agents, agents they use to treat and process the cocoa, which may have heavy metals in it. So what are our conclusions when we look at chocolate? Well, we did find toxic metals in all our chocolate samples. We also found some not so desirable metals like aluminum, nickel, and cobalt in our chocolate samples. But we also found a lot of essential minerals such as calcium, magnesium, potassium, copper, iron, which were in high quantities in our chocolate samples. And finally, there was a note that there was a petition by the American Environmental Safety Institute that they requested the FDA to establish a limit for lead and cadmium in cocoa products. They want that limit to be set to 2 micrograms per kilogram. So what's cooking in our chemical kitchen? Well, we found that toxic metals were present in many of the gourmet foods we examined. But we also, on the other side, found a lot of beneficial elements such as the potassium and the iron. And it did seem to be like in any other food choice you make in your life, the choices of your food item and the portion size that you choose to have affect your exposure level. So I wanted to give a little scenario of our most toxic gourmet dinner we're serving up here. This is for an average adult. This is not considered to be for a children's weight. But for an average adult from 170 to 180 pounds, you start with a glass of wine and you'll get about 0.8 micrograms of lead. Then you have your nice swordfish for dinner, and 4 ounces of that swordfish, you know, a 1/4 of a pound, you're going to have about 111 micrograms of mercury. If you sprinkle a little bit of salt on top of your vegetables and on top of that fish, one of these salts that we used in our gourmet study can have up to 1/2 microgram of mercury and 4 micrograms of lead. Then you're going to finish with some nice dark chocolate, about 2.5 ounces of dark chocolate, and you're going to end up with 8 micrograms of mercury and 6 micrograms of lead. So what's the grand total? For your total meal, you'll end up with 11 micrograms of lead, or just about 22 to 25% of your daily allowance, so 1/4 of your daily allowance of lead for your meal in one dinner. And you're going to have 119 micrograms of mercury. Well, because of that swordfish, you now are over 1,400% above your daily limit of mercury for the day, and you're about 200% or over your weekly daily limit of mercury. Just a little disclaimer, this study was not intended to designate any safety or purities of any products. We only studied the particular elements I've mentioned here today. And all the sources and samples we studied were not representative of all the types of samples that are there for fish, chocolate, salt, or other brands. And we're not intending this study to advise or warn against any particular brand or any particular product. If you would like our references, you can call SPEX and the numbers on the screen, or you can send us an email at crmsales@specscsp.com. And you can also take a look at some of our other studies that we have on our website, including our last webinar topic in April, which was the analysis of laboratory and consumer water sources for the presence of BPA and phthalates. And that is available for download on our website. Are there any questions? Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, we have a question here. Are fish oils as safe or safer than eating seafood? Well, we did do at the same time, we did do a study on some fish oil supplements. We found that the fish oil supplements had quite a few of the beneficial elements and not as many of the toxic elements. So other reports do show that the omega-3 fatty acids are actually in the fish oil as well as the fish. So you can actually take fish oil supplements and get the same benefit. Any other questions? So we have a question, what can we eat? Well, everybody can eat anything they want. I'm not going to designate any particular food that somebody should be eating. Just like any nutritionist will tell you, you can eat anything in moderation. You just should be aware of what is in your food and what quantities this should be found in. So if you do have a concern about mercury, you should take that into consideration when making your food choice. Okay. What is methylmercury, and should it be tested as consumed, cooked? Is this an argument against sushi? Well, methylmercury is a chemical complex of mercury, which is often formed in the presence of water. So there are many mercury compounds which actually can complex into methylmercury. Should the fish be tested and consumed and cooked? For the most part, mercury is not always destroyed in the process of cooking or being consumed as sushi. So the best answer is that you have to assume that the level of mercury is going to be the same in whether you cook your fish or whether you use it as sushi. So you should just be aware that this is the level determined in the fish and make your decisions from there, and not have cooking or sushi as a way of trying to make a decision on which fish you should eat. And when can we download this presentation? The presentation is on our website, and you will be able to download it anytime you want. Are there any other questions?
We would like to thank everyone for attending and hope that you found this presentation interesting and informative. Everyone in attendance will receive a 10% coupon off any one Claritas ICP MS standard. You will also receive a follow-up email with a link to a short survey where we will request feedback on your experience. Everyone who fills out this brief survey will receive a BPA-free SPEX CertIPrep stainless steel water bottle. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you again in a future webinar.